Welcome to Geotab Online Training. Today's session is the Software Development Kit, or SDK, Introduction. In this session, we have Adam Sturton introducing us to the SDK, with Steve Hansen and Jordan Guter answering questions you may have. As we enter in, Adam is starting off with the question of how can I use this and add value? Enjoy the session, and if you have any questions, please reach out to your reseller or account manager, and we will assist you in any way we can.
How can I start using this effectively and adding value in many different ways? So the SDK is an acronym for the Software Development Kit. It allows you to leverage everything that Geotab has, all of the data, and add things to it, integrate third-party software packages, build it into your own software and infrastructure in many different ways. So just some of the things that are possible using the SDK is people could start building mobile apps that leverage the Geotab data very easily. You can get something out for Android, for a tablet, for a phone, on the iPhone, the iPad. It's very easy to start using the Geotab data in that way. Another person might try to automate some processes by taking the trips to do some like automatic billing based off of where your vehicles go. So how that would work is you could pull in some data, do your own calculations, and everything that makes your business run on your side, and you'd use the SDK in that way. Another new one is that we're going to touch on today very heavily is what we call a Geotab add-in. And that's a way that you can build new functionality into Geotab itself. It's one of the new features that we've just introduced. It's a very powerful thing, and I'd like to showcase some of the things we've been doing with add-ins today. And then lastly, maybe you have a lot of people to manage, and you can start taking some of the burden away from yourself by automating some of the things that you're going to do every day. You can build some little scripts and little things that can just enhance your workflow greatly using the SDK. So as I said before, there are some technical things involved with the SDK. It is a software development kit. However, there are some pre-built components inside there that you can take advantage of right away without having to be a programmer at all. The only prerequisite is that you are currently sitting on Geotab 5.7 or later. So some older customers that have been around for a while, maybe they're not upgraded there. That would be the goal that you have to get to 5.7 to begin using all of the stuff we're going to be talking about today. So more specifically from different points of view here, customers can use some things to automatically import and export data. I know that that's a common use case. A lot of people say, how do I take my big Excel file and put it into Geotab? Well, the SDK is how you would do something like that. From a reseller's point of view, you're managing a lot of different people. So, I mean, we can automate some of the things like setting up new accounts or making sure that your records are in sync with Geotab's records. And, again, that's an SDK thing that you can build that functionality in yourself. And then if you are a software developer yourself, some of the things we're going to show today, especially in the add-ins, you have a blank canvas here that you can use the wealth of all of Geotab's telematics data. So hopefully from all of these different points of view, no matter where you are, we'll have something for you today. So the number one entry point of how to get started and how to learn more after this presentation is just go to sdk.geotab.com. We have all of our stuff up to date, all the documentation, all the links to different places, all in one place. So one of the things that's really special about the Geotab SDK is that we offer first-level support for everything. So if you have a question, something's unclear, and you need to know how to get something done, we have developers waiting to answer these questions for you. So you can go online into that link that I just showed you, sdk.geotab.com, head over to our forums, and you can ask question, and it might get picked up by a developer within minutes, or maybe someone else had that same problem and they've already answered it. So there's a whole community of people that can help you out and get the job done. The Geotab developer community here will always keep all of our documentation up to date. We try to provide how-to documentation and really concrete examples of, hey, if you need to do this, this is exactly the steps you need to take to get that done. And then on top of that, for the people that are just getting started, some of the things you can get inside the Geotab SDK download are some sample apps that you can run right out of the box and have something working within minutes. So there's a lot of stuff to check out there, and I really encourage you to head over to sdk.geotab.com and take a look at all the different things we offer there. Okay, so one of the things I want to stress is that you don't have to be a software developer to use all of these great things. On the forums itself, you'll find that there are some people that don't work at Geotab that are software developers. They maybe are from different resellers or their customers themselves, and they can help too. It is a community, so people learn from each other, and so there's a whole wealth of things there. One of the big differentiators too is that if you just browse around to some of the different telematics vendors, the SDK is a very unique thing that Geotab offers. Some of the big people here, I just went to their websites recently and tried to gauge whether or not there was something equivalent there. And what I found was everyone's operating these closed systems. So if you need to integrate your accounting into the telematics data, there's not a lot of options out there. So that's one of the really unique things about Geotab is that we say, if you need this data, it's yours. And you can get it out using the SDK. So usually, somebody will ask me, hey, is it possible to do this? And the answer is always yes, because that data is yours, and you can pull it out very easily. So I'm a visual person myself, so I just wanted to kind of show you what this looks like from a very high level. The SDK is like a little software package that you would have on your own system. And how that works is that you have software, or you have a web application, or you have a mobile app, and you're going to leverage the Geotab SDK right there, and it's going to talk to our SDK essentially. So it's going to communicate right to Geotab, and it's going to alleviate a lot of the initial work that you would do otherwise to get the data directly from Geotab. So it's like a set of tools that are compatible with our tools, if that makes sense. Okay. So some examples here is maybe you're a person that wants to get all of the latitudes and longitudes and all of the location history out of where your guys travel. So you could use something like a live feed to get all of that data out, and it would be completely automated using the SDK. Another person might build a phone app that runs on iPhone that you can go on there and it will real-time tell you where everybody is. So you could just build an iPhone app that has the Geotab SDK built into that and make it really easy to get all of our telematics data out. Another person might build something that has some really great interactive charts and graphs and different stuff that builds right into Geotab itself. And again, this is one of those add-in things that I want to talk about later on. I'm going to show you how those work. I'm really excited about them. And as I said before, too, maybe when you're managing a lot of different customers or a big fleet, you can automate a lot of the things like setting up hundreds of thousands of zones or lots of user accounts. And you can completely keep those things in sync with your own systems too. So all using SDK there. So let me warn you, this is about as technical as we're going to get today. from a developer's point of view, there's multiple ways that you can start taking advantage of the SDK. So we offer a package for JavaScript for web applications that you can completely just drop into your own software and start using it there. On the desktop side, we have a C# SDK that you can start making desktop applications very easily that use their telematics data. And then on top of that, we have like a web service interface that if you've got a software package in any of the major programming languages, you can take advantage of that. So we've tried to design this thing with flexibility in mind, that no matter what you're using on your side and what other systems you're using, there's a way to get your data. Okay, so one of the things that we've most recently been working on and that I'm most excited about is the Geotab add-in. So add-ins are little mini web applications that live inside the Geotab infrastructure. So a lot of people say, hey, can I get a report that does this? Or how would I find out where my guys are here? And like all these certain conditions. And while there may not be a direct feature in the Geotab software right now, add-ins are a way for us to say, well, you would do it this way. Right? So we can add specific functionality to individual customers without making somebody that doesn't use the functionality confused and just cluttering it with unused things. So an add-in could be anything. We really give you a blank canvas in terms of what you can create. Some people have built reports, custom reports with interactive charts. Some people have done visualizations of their data. Some people have brought in third-party software packages and mapped certain trending behaviors. And the really great thing is because these things are living inside of the Geotab infrastructure, you really have a lower barrier of entry. So there's a lot less you have to do to create one of these than it would be to create your own application from scratch. And that's because they're living inside the already existing Geotab infrastructure. So just some ideas of things that you could build into Geotab using an add-in would be somebody could make a heat map of where people are during the work hours. You could do some custom reports with interactive drill downs. You could do something that monitors your vehicle health, looking at the engine codes and all of the different diagnostics coming off of the onboard computer. You could overlay real-time traffic cameras to see when you should head home. You could recreate accidents with lead-up causes and see what happened, a couple weeks ago that led to a crash. Or you could display tweets of where police have set up their speed traps. It's really up to you, and it's a blank canvas. So a lot of people have made some really interesting things, and we're excited to see where this goes. So I want to show one of the ones that we have recently created. This one is a proximity add-in. So it's a map-based one that somebody can type in an address and find out whether or not somebody's ever been to that location. So this answers the question of, your company van hit my vehicle yesterday. And this way we can go in and type in that address of where that was and find out whether or not anyone is actually near that location. Or, you never picked up my garbage. Well, now we can go in here and visually determine that without having to, walk through hundreds of reports and rows of data. We can visualize that all completely on a map. Another one that we've seen is the heat map, and I talked about that recently. So this is a visualization of somebody's location history. So the more frequent they are at a location, the hotter that area gets. So this kind of add-in answers the question of, how often does my guy go to Tim Hortons and get a coffee? Well, what you'd see now is that area with the coffee shop is going to start getting hotter as that person goes there more. So we can create some really interesting things that are going to be very unique. And the best part is this doesn't clutter and confuse people that are never going to use this, because these are, I equate them to being like extensions to your computer, like kind of like accessories. So if you want them, you can put them on there, but if you don't need them, well, you don't need to touch them. Some other things I've seen recently is actually some third-party vendors now. People are already starting to create their own add-ins, and it's starting to be like a little ecosystem of itself. This one from mapsdi.com is a business intelligence reporting software. And what they're able to do is they've built some add-ins that use the Geotab SDK that pull in information about fuel, location history, and they aggregate that all into some beautiful charts and graphs and map out where people go and where they purchase fuel. So, it's not a feature that everybody needs, and this is why it's great that it's built into one of these Geotab add-ins. So this answers the question of, am I paying more than the average person pays for fuel? So it uses a whole lot of data to say, over time, my fleet costs me this, but, based off of the average price of fuel for that week, I'm paying 5 cents more than I should have been. So another component is using the JavaScript SDK. And in the Geotab SDK, we have a lot of pre-built functions for you that you can use right out of the from the ground up. They're little web applications that you can run. All you need to do is you can sign into your own database, and you can do things like importing lists of devices, users, zones, and all you need to do is you can drop in some values there, and it will automatically create all those things for you. So a great way to synchronize a list in Excel would be to use one of these things that we already have for you, drop in your Excel, and then all of your things are already created for you on Geotab. One of the things I want to stress is that the SDK is a huge differentiator versus some of the other telematics people. There are not a lot of people out there that have an open API like Geotab does. We are at a point now where we can say anything you kind of dream up now is possible, because we're just sitting on top of this wealth of data that you can get access to. And with these add-ins now, there's so much flexibility that you can almost build your own little web application. You can start your own business that lives inside Geotab. It's really amazing what's possible. And the great thing is that from a reseller's point of view, the SDK is kind of like a binding contract now. So once you have something that your customers are using, and it integrates their systems and it integrates our systems, it creates like a dependency chain that it's really solid business relationship that you have at that point. Hopefully that gives you enough to kind of get your feet wet. I know there's a lot of stuff to take in, so I really encourage you to check the forums, and on top of that, the sdk.geotab.com site. You can start asking questions now and try out some of the things that are pre-built and start developing.
All right, thanks, Adam. I think what we could probably do now is open up the forum, and maybe Adam could open up the sdk.geotab.com just so that you can see what it looks like and take you through a little bit of a walkthrough with that.
Sure.
Just to get you familiar with it.
So when you do go to sdk.geotab.com, you'll land on this page here. So what you'll want to do is click on the 5.7 SDK, and you're going to be welcome with a whole lot of options here. So there's some pages here that I encourage first-time readers to really peruse, understand some initial concepts that are going to help you later on learn about all of the different things we have to offer. Along the left-hand side, we have some specific areas of interest. So if you are coming from a development point of view, and you're a web application developer, you can start reading the things about JavaScript. If you're more on the desktop side, we've got some documentation tuned for that. And then on top of that, we've got concrete examples that you can download on the code sample side. So if you check out JavaScript examples, there's some downloads here that you can put on your computer, start running, and those are the things that you can start doing the imports using Excel. Those are all built into there. And another really important thing is don't forget to click on the forums. As soon as you have a question, we highly encourage you to get in contact with us, and somebody can help you either learn more about the topic you need to do, or give you the code you need to get something accomplished.
So we actually do have a pretty good question from somebody asking if you could maybe show one of the examples that we do have on the website.
Okay.
So we can probably just take up really quickly an example to show how you go about using it. From there, creating your own is a whole different story, but maybe just for those of you who want to keep it simple and utilize this.
So I've downloaded the JavaScript zip file from the here to download link here. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this over to my desktop for the time being. So there's a whole lot of HTML files. They're all little mini web applications. So some of the ones that you can use right up out of the zip file here are the imports. So these are the things that you can synchronize your Excel lists or different databases you have. So let's take a look at import devices. So I'm just going to sign in here.
As most of you know from our other training sessions, My3 is our development database.
Yep. So, I've signed into a database here, and it's given me some instructions on what it's expecting. So what I would do here is, if I had a list of different Geotab Go devices, I could just enter these all in on a line here. So, if the serial number was this, the name is going to be John, and I can assign him to be in the Canada group. So I could keep doing all of these different serial numbers here. Maybe this is Ryan, and he's going to be in the US group. And I can enter all these things in, and then just hit import. And this is in the background using the JavaScript SDK. And it's going to contact your database and create those devices for you. So all automated. So it simplifies a lot of the workflow. Some of the more interesting ones in the JavaScript samples here. Let's take a look.
I just want to make a comment on the one that Adam just showed you. It works really well when you have a list of devices already set up in Excel. You can literally set exactly what you need to have entered very quickly. If you have 300 devices, you set up exactly the way they want it by copying and pasting and just setting up a string, copying it, and then pasting it right into that window so you don't have to retype it, and then hit the upload, and there it is. I use it all the time. It works wonderfully.
So we have a good question about multiple groups. You can use this with multiple groups. The SDK will tell you how to separate the different groups for the vehicle or user to be edited for.
So here's another one of the samples. This one is more of is less of a utility like the last one. This is more of a, here's how to do something if you were going to be making your own web application. So this one will show you how to get a list of all of your vehicles on your account. So I'm going to pick somebody here. And what this will do is it will give you an example of how to not only get those devices, but requesting location history as well. So this one pulls up the most recent trip and then shows you how to plot that on a map. So if you were going to be building something that uses our telematics data, most likely you're going to be plotting something on the map. So these examples serve as a great basis for building your own thing. And depending on the sample we're looking at, some of these will do a little bit more complicated things. So this one looks at the location history, and depending on the vehicle's speed, is going to color that differently. So it just shows you how to kickstart some of your own projects and how to make something using all of the data that we have to offer you.
I just want to point out once again that this is completely open to questions at this point in time. We still have some time left during the presentation, so you're free to ask anything. Obviously, we can't get into anything too technical. That's definitely why the forums for the SDK was mentioned, so please utilize that if you need. So somebody's asking a question. I know maybe you can answer this, developer. Is there a way to get it to do like a trip replay or to show like the trail of the trip?
Okay. So how I would implement something like that would be, that would probably be a perfect example of doing an add-in. So what you could do is you could, let me bring up an add-in here, like a real world one. So I know we were talking about these ones before, so I'm gonna bring up one we already looked at. So this proximity add-in. So an add-in is something that lives inside Geotab. It has a link along the left-hand side here, so there's a way to naturally get to it, just like everything else. So this proximity add-in is probably not on your account because these things can live in individual databases. So on ours here, we have a bunch of the ones that developers have been creating. So for instance, I could say, let's type in an address. Let's type in the address at the office here. Let's say this. Boom. And I'm going to pull up the same vehicle again. So what this does is it will kind of show me that area that I just asked for, and it's going to tell me whether or not this vehicle has ever been at that location inside the boundary during this time frame. So this is today from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And it shows me that this vehicle was in fact there, and we've recorded 5,000, almost 5,500 individual hits inside that boundary. So, and I can kind of mouse over here and show exactly when, how far away they were from that address. So it's really up to you what you build into here. So if you're going to be building a kind of a replay, you could use this as a great framework. You already have the maps already created for you. So what you would do is a lot of things you could reuse actually. You could say you've got all your vehicles here, and all you need to do is request the trips for that vehicle for the time frame, and then kind of build some sort of functionality that allows you to step through it. Let me take you to another one here. This one is called, this is one of the ones I worked on. This one's called Rewind. So we're going to look at today at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to pull up that same vehicle we were looking at. So this is where somebody was at 9 o'clock in the morning. And this is more along the lines of being able to recreate it. So I have some controls here that allow me to move ahead in time by 1 minute. I can move backwards by 1 minute, or 5 minutes, or half an hour. So what I can do here, let me just zoom out so we can see this person driving into work. I can move ahead 1 minute, and that location updates to say where that person was. And I can watch them essentially drive in. And now it's 9:04, and I know that this vehicle, well, he was late getting to work. Right? So that's kind of along the lines of what you'd be creating yourself. Maybe you want to visualize it differently, and that's entirely up to you.
Is it possible to see any of the script that goes along with that particular one?
Yeah. So that's one of the things we're going to be releasing to people is all of these add-ins that we've created. We gave them out at Geotab Connect to all of the developers that attended there, and very shortly we're going to have that available to everybody else.
Okay. Is there any basic samples that you could show?
Yes. So on the SDK.geotab.com, just head back there. We have documentation here developing add-ins. that if you can work your way through here. There's some initial concepts that, again, you'll need to know. But to start creating an add-in, it really starts with an XML file, or sorry, not XML, a JSON file that you can drop into your account, and it will specify an HTML page. Your HTML page is up to you what you create. So my HTML page was everything you see from the map to the right. Right? So you just specify where that is on the internet using, it would be mywebserver.com/whatever to your HTML page. And then we've got complete examples. If you head down here a little bit, of how to start building these things, the HTML required, the JavaScript required, and the CSS required to build an add-in from scratch. And I believe the ones that we have in this documentation, you can drop in and they will work right out of the box. Yeah.
All right. Again, reminder, we have questions in the corner. If you want to ask anything, please do.
So oftentimes in your program, sometimes you have users will put in the mynumber.geotab.com website. If their database were to move or the service changed, how would that affect their code?
So when you're using the SDK, some of those things are taken care of for you. So if you were to make something from scratch, you would have to deal with those complexities, like what happens if my database all of a sudden relocates. But when you're using the SDK, those are kind of abstracted away from you. So what would happen is, so let's say somebody logs in, everything's working fine for a week, and then all of a sudden over the weekend some maintenance happens where your database gets moved. In the SDK, your code will be essentially called to say, hey, this authentication is no longer valid. And then that way you'd be able to handle that gracefully without, throwing up a big error message. So that stuff is kind of taken care of for you when you use the JavaScript or the C# SDK. You will have to respond to those types of things, but a lot of the things are wrapped up and handed to you.
Wow. Okay. All right. I don't see any outstanding questions right now. Still, we have a little bit of time, so it's still an open forum at this point. I guess we'll just go on standby for those questions.
Okay, well, while we're just sitting here, I'll take a look at another one that we've created, just to give you some ideas of what we've done. I showed you before the heat map, so let's take a look at how that one actually works. So this one's another map-based add-in. So I'm going to take a look at my favorite person that we just keep checking out here. So this is one of our drivers here in our development team. And what this does is it will look at today by default from 9 to 5. So I can now visualize where he spent his time. So clearly he was driving along the highway into the office. And if I zoom in here, I can actually see the individual points that that person was at. And as he does do things like stop at lights or get stuck in traffic, those areas start to light up and get hotter. So if you were considering finding out what does a person's normal day look like, you'd be able to see anomalies very well by just visualizing it rather than having to look through reports and look at, hey, does this stop make sense? Does this stop make sense? Now we can just look at it visually and say, this looks strange because this area shouldn't be that hot. Why is he at the beer store on his lunch break?
Do you mind showing everybody just where you would put that JSON add-in?
Sure. So you manage all of the add-ins on your account by going to administration on the left-hand side, click on system, and then your system settings. Now along the top here, you've got a tab for add-ins. So we've got some of the ones that we have on the account right now here. If you were going to be using the one that was in the documentation, you would click on new add-ins, and then you would just simply paste in the JSON that is in the documentation. So let's just take a look at that. And we'll scroll up to find it. Here's my example. I'm going to copy all of that. So I can find the right tab. There we go. So I would just drop that in there. And what you'll see in that is the title of the browser window, essentially. I have a support email address, and that's, if an error ever gets produced in your add-in, this is a way for us to say, this is the person you should get into contact with. It supports versioning, so we can say, hey, person, there's an error on version 1.2, and that way we'll be able to reference that quite easily. I'll talk about items in a second. The file is a way to reference individual, HTML things here. So I can build that HTML right into the add-in here. Obviously, if you're familiar with HTML, that's not valid. This is more of an example. So I can build these components right into my add-in. So I have my HTML, my JavaScript, and my CSS, all of the things that I need to run this web application, they're all right in there. And then on top of that, we have this process that ensures that nobody's going to do anything malicious to your data. So once you've created an add-in, you can contact Geotab through our forums and have your add-in signed. So that way, if someone was ever going to make a modification to it, it would stop working because it fails the signing process. The other option available to you, I'm going to look at another one, is the heat map add-in. So it uses the items property instead. So what we've done here is we've specified that the HTML page for this add-in is actually hosted somewhere else. And in this instance, it's on a Dropbox account. So that way, if you had this add-in on multiple databases, it now lives at a single address. So if you made a change on Dropbox, everybody that's using the add-in automatically gets that update. And then on top of that, we have a menu name. So how that works is that's the actual left-hand side name. So when you need to click onto that, that's what you see here. You can localize this into multiple languages. So I can say, here's the French version of it. I don't know what that would be. Heat map. Sorry, only 8 years of French in my life, and that's what I came up with. So yeah, and that's how it all comes together. So you just drop these things in there, click OK, and they're instantly available on your account.
No, somebody's just asking what a shapefile is. A shapefile is basically a file that you have that could be used for inputting maps or zone locations. It's basically just a shape itself, which is called SHP file to import or whatever to use.
It's essentially like a list of latitude and longitudes that comprise boundary. So a shape could be North America, and it would be all of the latitude and longitude that, if you plotted them, that would create the shape of North America.
So we have a question about, so it's great you showed them how to put in the add-in, but how do you specify which drop-down will it be included in?
Sure. So for instance, we have a couple here. We have the heat map and the rewind that you saw, and they are actually in two different locations. So there's the proximity one, and under activity I have rewind and heat map. So if we take a look at the heat map, this one is located under the activity link. And if we take a look at that activity, there's the heat map. So in the documentation, there's a list of all of the available ones that you can use. And they can either be inside a submenu, or they can be as an entry themselves along in the byte. So it's up to you where it gets dropped in. And all of the available options are in that developing add-in documentation on sdk.geotab.com.
All right. We have some really good questions. I'm not seeing too many there. Somebody just followed up on one with the add-ons, the icons that we use.
Yep.
And would you would access those?
You have to specify your own. They are 32 by 32 pixels wide. So, for instance, the heat map one has some flames on it. So if you take a look at where that's specified, I have in my items property, I have an icon, and that's just a URL to where that icon is. So again, this one's hosted on Dropbox, and it's just the absolute URL to the image file. And then when it gets loaded, the Geotab server will go pick it up and then display it for you.
Somebody's asking if they can edit the device icons on the map.
So the add-ins themselves don't have access to changing existing functionality. They are new features. So if you wanted to use something that displays icons on a map, it's entirely up to you what to use. So all of the existing Geotab functionality is unaltered and is still there. These are just added things that you have a blank canvas to create anything you want from. So if you want it to be a picture of your head, you make it a picture of your head. If you want it to be a vehicle, you make it a vehicle. And it's entirely up to you.
So as you know, we have the question box still open, and we're going to be here, and we can continue to answer these questions. If you need to go, you can certainly do that too. As I said, we're going to be here, and I want to thank Adam for presenting. Please reach out to either your account manager or your reseller, whichever. If you have any more questions, we'll certainly be available to help you. And we're going to stay here online. If you don't hear us, we've just muted ourselves, but we'll certainly stay here online and ask questions if you would like to. Yes, the webinar is recorded. Someone's asking. I will have it posted probably next week, and it will remain posted, so if you need it, you can certainly reuse it to show everybody and anybody that you need to. Okay? All right, with that said, thanks everybody for coming. We're going to stay online, but you might not hear us. Okay, if you have any questions, just put them into the question bar. Thanks for coming.